As determined by Glamorgan Spring Bay Council in April 2017, all ordinary and special meetings of council are to be audio-visually recorded and streamed live. In response to COVID-19 social gathering regulations, this meeting will be held remotely via video conference. Where possible, a live stream of the meeting will be made available. In accordance with the Glamorgan Spring Bay Council meetings, audio-visual recordings and live streaming policy number 6.2, a recording of the meeting will be available via the link on the Glamorgan Spring Bay Council website within 5 business days of the meeting. In accordance with the Local Government Act 1993 and Regulation 33, these video audio files will be retained by Council for at least 6 months and made available for viewing live as well as online within 5 days of the scheduled meeting. The written minutes of a meeting, once confirmed, prevail over the video audio recording of the meeting. Welcome councillors and staff, and I declare the meeting open at 2:35 p.m. The Glamorgan Spring Bay Council acknowledges the traditional owners of our region and recognises their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. All councillors are present apart from Councillor Simons, who is an apology due to work commitments. In attendance, we have Mrs. Marissa Walters, the Acting General Manager, and Mrs. Josie Higgins, Council's Executive Officer. I request elected members to indicate whether they have 1, any interest personally or via a close associate as defined in section 49 of the Local Government Act 1993, or 2, any conflict as described in Council's Code of Conduct for councillors in any item included in the agenda. No conflicts. Item 2.1, response to Minister for Local Government re Performance Improvement Direction. Could I have a motion, please? Councillor Churchill.
I move that Council authorises the Acting General Manager to write a letter of response to the Minister for Local Government in relation to his intentions to issue a performance improvement direction, including a milestone plan, and request that Council be given until the 30th of April 2021 to complete all direction actions.
Councillor Churchill?
Yes. Could you not hear me?
Okay, that did not come through well, and it seems to make a difference when you turn your head away from the computer. So can you put your papers in front of you and read straight downwards, please?
Okay. Would you like me to do it again?
Thank you.
You'd like me to do it now?
Thank you.
Okay. I move that Council authorise the Acting General Manager to write a letter of response to the Minister for Local Government in relation to his intentions to issue a performance improvement direction, including a milestone plan, and request that Council be given until 30th of April 2021 to complete all directed action.
Thank you, that was clear. Did everyone else find that clear? Are you frozen?
Yeah, you're frozen.
Are you frozen?
Everyone else is frozen.
You know.
Modern technology.
Hello. Okay. If everyone can move their heads, if they're not frozen anymore.
You're frozen.
Okay. Are we all back? Good. Now, did everyone hear Councillor Churchill read that? Yes, great. Could I have somebody to second, please? Councillor Breeny?
I didn't raise my hand for seconding. I think it's Councillor Wood.
Is it this end?
Did you hear me
Can you
then?
just move? I'll get, are you on?
But I'm hopeful.
Just hold on a moment. We're having problems. Clearly, you're hosting. What if I get on use your computer?
I'm just going to get rid of my virtual background. And that calls for a minute. You might have to try in the meantime, but I suspect it's more there.
Okay. So where we got to was Councillor, so we're going to restart the recording. We've done that, Acting General Manager. Restart the recording. Oh. Oh, so you've restarted the recordings. The recording's on. It's going to be very funny to watch back for people. That's all I can say. So, you can come into the picture. Yeah. Okay. Crazy. Here we go again. So we've got Councillor Churchill has moved a motion which was the same as the recommendation under 2.1. And do I have somebody to second that motion, please? Deputy Mayor, thank you. Councillor Churchill, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, please, Mayor. I just want to say a few words. I know that this is a slight extension on what the Minister and Director had originally given us, but on the back of qualified advice, it's clearly evident that for us to do a good job on getting all these issues dealt with, it is probably still not quite enough time, but it's perhaps a doable timeline. So it's good that we were invited at least to put in that extension of time. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Woods?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to concur with Councillor Churchill. It was we were invited to write for an extension of time, and I think this extension should be hopefully will be accepted by the Director. The Minister, sorry. My apologies. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone wish to speak against the motion? For the motion? Councillor Browning? Councillor Browning, you're on mute.
Through the Mayor, I'd just like to say I will be supporting the motion, and I'd like to thank Marissa for all her work her and the team have done to move us towards a position of strength and compliance.
Thank you, Councillor Browning, and just remembering in we use Mrs. Walters.
Mrs. Walters. Sorry.
Thank you. That's okay. Any further debate? In that case, I'll put the motion. All those for? It is unanimous. Thank you. Moving on to item 2.2, There is, this is a Natural Resource Management Committee submission on the rural water use strategy
The
position.
deadline of 10 July 2020.
Did you see that the words "which is" have been taken out
Yep.
before the 10th of July
Oh, okay.
and replaced with the word "of"? Councillor Arnold, did you wish to put in the word Glamorgan Spring Bay Natural Resource Management Special Committee in there, because it is the Glamorgan Spring Bay? That was just I made online to be clearer. That was all.
Yep. I'm happy for that to live. Thank you.
So it would be that council endorses the Glamorgan Spring Bay.
Natural Resource Management Committee submission. Yes.
Yeah, and you've changed the word to "of." Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that's great. Thank you. Somebody to second, please. Councillor Brenny, you wish to speak to the motion, Councillor Arnold? Oh, yes, sorry, you speak first, Councillor Arnold, yes.
Right, thank you. No, not really, Mayor. The information's all there for council for catchment management, which if you're interested in this whole water problem that we have, it's a really good book to get hold of.
Thank you. Before coming to you, Councillor Brenny, I know the Acting General Manager has a few words.
Thank you, Mayor. I asked our advisor, Greg Priest, just to have a bit of a read over it, just with some concerns with just a couple of points of language and whether that was going to be an issue for council to be issuing this paper. And he came back with a suggestion on page 4 of the submission. Nine paragraphs down where it starts with the current penalties.
Yes.
Where it says the current penalties for water theft, rather than using the word water theft, perhaps changing it to unauthorised water take.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, I can't comment on any of this. I mean, this is council, because I didn't have any part in actually doing this submission, even though I'm chair of the NRM committee, but take on board what Mr. Priest has said, certainly.
And just the next two paragraphs where it's referring to water stealing, but it's probably, rather than rewording it, they're probably actually not necessary. Given it's just explaining the situation and people would understand what is meant by that. So just points for consideration. That were the only things, just whether or sort of exposing council, just the language might antagonise some people.
Are they, is that the only two changes that he suggested?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, as I said, I'm chair of the committee. I don't think the committee, I mean, the committee obviously, or the group that was doing this, had very strong views on what's actually happening in the catchment. But in terms of getting this, this submission actually into the position paper, I don't think any of the committee members would have a problem with actually just changing those words slightly to a more politically palatable phrase.
So that is unauthorised water take instead of water theft, and remove all of the two paragraphs under, which is talking about the stealing of water. So as the mover, I mean, at the end of the day, this is, as you know, the Section 24 committee is an advisory committee. This is a submission that is being put to council for council to endorse for lodgement. So the council need to be satisfied with the document as a council. So, you know, we have the right to change words if we feel that they are not going to be, you know, potentially okay in the broader world. So,
as I said, Mayor, if it means that the document is going to be more, if you like, political palatable to the community or to the council rather, to be put in and endorsed by council, to be put in by our NRM committee, then I am sure that I will speak on behalf of the people who actually formulated the paper by saying, let's change it.
Okay, so as the mover, you have no issue, Councillor Arnold?
Pardon?
As the mover, you have no issue to that?
No, I don't. No, I don't.
And Councillor Breeny, as the person who seconded this from memory, you have no issue with that?
Thank you, Mayor. Could you just confirm that the paragraph that reads the current penalties for water theft are amended to read the current penalties for unauthorised use of water by those? That's the amendment you're talking about?
Unauthorised water take.
Unauthorised water
Thank
take.
you. Thank you. That's fine by me. I think I agree with Councillor Arnold. I do know that there is passion in the NRM committee in relation to this issue, and I believe that maybe it would be a better sell as a submission that we do ameliorate that to a certain extent, but we need to make sure that the rest of the report, which is, by the way, an excellent report, and I commend the NRM committee too. Thank you.
Our working, yes, if I may, Mayor, the working group that took this on, it was a very short space of time they had to deal with it, and like Councillor Breeny, I think they did an amazing job to put together this report in the time they had. So I thank Council for their consideration of it.
Okay, does anyone wish to speak against the report? For the report? Deputy Mayor?
Yes, I would just like to congratulate the NRM committee, special committee. It is a great report, easy to read, and I will be endorsing this today. I will be supporting this. Thank you.
Okay, any further debate? So I've got on page 3 of the document, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 paragraphs, sorry, 5 paragraphs up from the bottom. It says there towards the bottom of that paragraph, no metering, no enforcement and no record of penalties. Maybe Councillor Arnold, you would know, does that mean no public record of penalties? Because of course they'd have record of penalty.
There's no, with, I just can't pick up page 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The other, individuals just going to hold with no negligible, no metering, no enforcement, and no. That's exactly right. That is an accurate statement, because there is no, there's currently no metering, there's no enforcement, so it follows that there can be no record of penalties, because how can you penalise somebody if you don't have a record of what they've been doing wrong? That's what that means. So individuals, as it says, individuals can hold numerous entitlements in relation to water.
No, I understand that, Councillor Arnold. That's not what I'm asking. What I'm asking is how do a group of people sitting around a table know that the government has no record of penalties?
Because there's not been any penalties, because there is only entitlements. There is no, to the best of my knowledge, there is no way for them to enforce penalties, because there's no metering, there's no way of actually enforcing the take under the entitlement to then impose a penalty. That's how I understand it.
But it's to the best of the knowledge of the people. So this is one being supported by council. There is no record, public record of penalties. It's not that there's been no penalties. We've got no idea.
No, I'm sorry, Mayor. That's not. There is no record of there's no record of penalties, because there's been no enforcement, because there's been no metering. That's what I understand.
Well,
you can't put a penalty on if you haven't got something to judge that penalty by. So if you've got an entitlement for water, you can take the water. But if you breach that take, there's no way that is monitored at the moment. So without it being monitored, how can a penalty be imposed?
I understand that, but
Right.
I'm not prepared to put my name to something that says there's no record of penalties, because I don't know. I haven't done an RTI or asked the government department, has there been any penalties? So as a council, we're agreeing that we're saying here that there is no record of penalties. I've got no idea. We know that there's no metering. Well, so as far as we know, there's no enforcement. I don't know.
Right.
Some people know there's no record of penalties, but it's no known, publicly known, or whatever the word needs to be. Otherwise, it's a very big statement coming from local government when we don't know. Councillor Brenny?
Thank you, Mayor. My understanding of this is that this is a submission and a report provided to us for endorsement. And I would assume that a report that's provided to us has investigated that very fact. I would be more inclined to be understanding of the statement, no record of penalties, if it was linked to the fact that there is negligible monitoring, no metering, no enforcement, and therefore likely to be no record of penalties, maybe. But if that's the information we're provided with, I'm working on that information. If that information is incorrect, I don't believe we've made a mistake. I believe the report maker has made a mistake.
I'm going through to the acting general manager. Can you confirm that the appropriate investigations have been undertaken to make that statement?
I could not confirm that 100%. No. And as you know, whether you want to put in there no public record, or whether you just want to delete the last bit and put no enforcement. I'm not.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If we have no publicly known enforcement or penalties, that's all I'm saying. It's just taking away as being a statement to saying publicly known.
All right. So again, if it's more politically palatable for this council to change those words, then just to make it sound nice, fine. I personally don't have a problem with it, and I don't think the committee will.
Yeah, I'm not trying to make it sound nice. I'm trying for council not to get in trouble for making statements that we haven't checked. And as the general manager just said, she's not aware that they have been checked.
Okay.
So what words are you thinking there, Councillor Arnold? No,
I'm not. I'm not. You're the one who's suggesting the words.
Okay, so you've got nothing in mind. Okay, so no publicly. What was the word?
No publicly available record of penalties, or
Yes. Yep. No publicly available enforcement or penalty records.
okay.
Yeah, over here, no
No metering, no publicly
available enforcement. And
or penalty
or record penalties.
records or penalty records. So no publicly available
Enforcement
or
record
records.
of
Yep.
penalties.
So, Mrs. Higgins has just confirmed that the motion therefore would read with the following amendments.
Yes.
That's okay.
Yes.
Thank you. So, Councillor Robinson, you wish to say something? You're on mute.
Yeah. Councillor Mayor, I was just going to say, and go along with what the acting general manager was saying, maybe just leave that off. We leave the penalty bit off, because we're already saying there's no enforcement, no metering. Do we need to say anything about penalties, a record of penalties? Because even what we're proposing there, are we assuming there's no public record? Maybe it's just best to leave that off, and just because we're saying there's no metering, there's no enforcement of penalties, Is that enough?
Well, how do we know that though, Councillor Robinson? That's what I'm saying. We don't know.
So what he's saying is just leave it at no enforcement.
Yeah.
How do we know there's no enforcement? How do you know? How do I know?
Because there's no metering.
But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I think the words that have been used, Councillor Robinson, make it clear that I do think they would have checked for publicly, public information where it's publicly available to anyone to go on a website and find where there's been any enforcement done or penalties issued. So I'm personally happy with the reword to support this. And I don't think Council's making a big statement because I'm sure that the NRM committee would be aware of a site if it existed.
So Mayor, the no public record bit would refer to the metering and the enforcement as well?
Yeah, so no, it related to the enforcement and the penalty records. We know there's no metering. We know that because we attended a meeting with all the users before your time, Councillor Robinson, in the little town of
Cranbrook.
and yes, confirmed that there was no metering. So I personally know that myself.
Yep, okay, I'm happy with that, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, any further debate? You're right with the amendments? On that basis, with the amendments, oh, sorry, just go back to Councillor Brenny. You happy with those simple amendments there?
Yes, Mayor, thank you.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. Okay, 2.3, marine infrastructure, boat ramps and associated jetties. Could I have a motion, please? Councillor Brenny.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that Council 1 authorise the Acting General Manager to write a letter to MAST requesting that A, MAST consider taking over ownership of the boat ramps and associated jetty assets, including maintenance, liability and associated depreciation costs of same, or at a minimum, B, MAST formally agree to replace boat ramps and associated jetty assets to reduce Council's depreciation costs and provide additional funding to cover ongoing maintenance and liability costs. 2, authorise the Acting General Manager to provide a copy of the letter to the Minister for Primary Industries and Water and the Minister for State Growth.
Thank you. So the changes there, did you get them? So we've got MAST formally agreed to replace, yes, and we've got the and after cost. Okay. Could I have somebody to second that motion, please? Councillor Churchill. Councillor Brennan, do you wish to speak to your motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. In the report, in relation to the strategic plans, the guiding principles, they indicate that we are to ensure that we're spending, undertaking spending and commitments that can be maintained in a manageable and affordable levels. Using ratepayer funds to deliver the best value and impact for the Glamorgan Spring Bay community. Delivering high cost and effective quality infrastructure. This is all part of what we're required to do as part of our structure plan, our strategic. Delivering high quality, cost effective infrastructure to meet the needs of the community, residents and visitors. In doing so, we have to make sure that we're able to afford those things and that we maintain them at a high level and that they're best value and impact. To those who may speculate that MAST will replace at the end of their lifetime infrastructure so that council will have no asset replacement or depreciation liability, this can only be considered to be a hope at best. Without such a policy and a firm commitment from MAST, GSBC or Morgan Spring Bay will have to accept and must accept liability for asset management, replacement, depreciation, without hesitation. We have to do that. It's part of our mandate. Hoping and guessing and wishing that MAST will take responsibility will not wash. It just won't. For example, if we need an example of what the liability is going to be to us, we can look at two straight liabilities, and one of them that's been very obvious in the last few weeks is the Prosser River training wall. The devastation caused to that by the recent water, the recent rainfall, is pretty obvious to anybody who goes and has a look at them. We're committed as a council to maintaining that structure. It's a multi-million-dollar structure, and I could say that the repairs and the requirement to update it and replace the damage that's been done or repair the damage that's been done is going to cost us, I'd say hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions. I don't know how much it's going to be, but it's an awesome responsibility that we have. We can't afford that. The Swansea boat ramp, $1.5 million project. It doesn't work. It now is a liability that we have to maintain. We can go on and on about these things, about the liability that we have. If we're now going to be acting with clarity, transparency, and good governance in making sure that we put aside council funding, council ratepayer funds, to make sure that we cover depreciation of these multi-million-dollar projects, then we have to be aware that we're not going to be able to do it, considering we've got a $2.5 million deficit as we stand. I would strongly encourage councillors to take a stance here and support this request to MAST to truly support the boating community and Glamorgan Spring Bay by accepting liability for what is plainly MAST infrastructure. I'm simply asking MAST, I think this motion is simply asking MAST to take responsibility for what they give in inverted commas to a council. To those who might argue that the reported council costs in this report, and I'll quote them, you know, we've got a cost of depreciation in 2018 for boat ramps and jetties of $45,000. We've got maintenance cost in the same period, 2018-19 was an additional $38,305. Maintenance cost in 2019 is $13,808. And depreciation expected on the Prosser Seawall, the training wall, is at least $166,000 without taking into account the review of these assets, which will increase the cost. You can be assured of that. The infrastructure that we have totals at this stage to 30th of June 2019 was $2.3 million. How can we as a council not ask and plead with MAST, if we have to take responsibility for what they give to us and what we can't afford to look after? If we can't afford to look after it, why aren't they taking the cudgel up? And that's what I'm asking people to do. If people consider that, if councillors consider that the depreciation and the maintenance costs are a minor cost, then that's the same argument you could use to say, well, why don't MAST take it on? Why aren't they paying those minor costs if it's a minor cost? What I contend, and what I think the figures for our annual budgeting will contend and show, is that these amounts are not minor, they're major, and we can't afford them at the moment. Let's ask MAST to do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brenny. Councillor Churchill, do you wish to speak?
Yeah, I'd just like to support Councillor Brenny's comments there, and just wanted to say that we are a small coastal council. We have lots of marine infrastructure, and it is becoming a cost that we really have to watch, and we all, as councillors, need to give a lot of thought to how we're going to handle these costs in the future, especially with the added risks of climate change and so forth added to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any councillor wish to speak against the motion? Councillor Arnold?
I guess I'm not actually speaking against the motion. I'm probably more debating the motion, if I may, Mayor. I don't have a problem with us putting this to MAST. I think it's just too big a chunk, if you like, for want of a better term, to do. Because the issues that we have, on the one hand, we're saying our core purpose in our strategic plan is to provide recreational facilities. Now, boat ramps and jetties come to that, in my view, because we have, as Councillor Churchill has said, a coastal community, we have a lot of people with boats. Surely at this point, it would be better for us to actually identify those facilities where there has been major engineering failure. And we both know, we all know at least two of them, because Councillor Bruni has just identified two of them. And put that to MAST, rather than try and say, okay, take the whole lot back. I think we would have a better argument with the government if we were to say, we have a problem, an engineering problem with the Swansea boat ramp. We have a problem, an engineering problem, which I might add was actually identified when all the discussions were originally held about that seawall, or questions were asked about it during the negotiations. It's caused this council a lot of grief at the moment. If I may just make an observation, it appears that we've lost the Deputy Mayor.
Deputy Mayor, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I can't get back in.
Sure, I've got you on speakerphone.
Thank you. I let down when Councillor Arnold was speaking.
So Councillor Arnold spoke again, feels that, do you want to summarise, Councillor Arnold, what your thoughts are?
I just think that, I think at the moment, the motion actually asks MAST to take over, I think, too much, given the way MAST operate. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but just the way that government department is set up. I think we need to have a more structured document go to MAST and say, this is our problems at the moment. What are you going to do about it? And get some sort of view around that.
Right. Thank you. You heard that,
Yes,
Deputy
I
Mayor?
did.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone wish to speak for the motion? Against the motion? Any other debate? Deputy
Can I
Mayor?
speak? Yeah, sorry. Can I speak? So the letter that's going to be sent to MAST by the Acting General Manager will be a structured letter, like it will not be basically what's written as far as the recommendation goes. It will be a structured letter pleading our case.
Deputy Mayor, you would have received a draft copy of that letter yesterday by email.
No, I didn't. I only received a draft copy of the letter to Mr. Shelton.
Oh, sorry. That's all you got?
Yeah.
Yes.
I haven't drafted this one
Yes,
yet.
sorry. No, this one has not been drafted. Sorry.
Yes, it would be.
Yes, it would be a formal letter, and it would also detail what infrastructure council has in respect to marine infrastructure throughout the municipality.
Okay, thank you.
In respect of not the marina or the commercial fishing wharf at Triana, excluding those. Okay, so as the debate has finished, Councillor Browning, you're on mute, Councillor Browning.
Sorry about that. Through the Mayor, can I just ask Councillor Arnold, you said that it was difficult because of the way that MAST was set up. Can you explain that a bit more? I don't.
Well, I mean, MAST is a government entity, and they do these jetties through a grant process that comes from boat licensing and the like. That's my only view of MAST, the way MAST is set up, and the fact that they've done at various times this report. This is the last one I have, which is 2012, which is a report of East Coast Marine Infrastructure, and it's a strategy around what they wanted to provide in areas for boating people from that recreational license fund that they have. And that's, I don't know that that's a huge amount of money, like it's maybe $2 million or something, and they get applications for 20 million sort of thing. So, yeah, so that's all I really know about the setup, if you like. Sorry.
Thank you.
Councillor Browning.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So I'll be supporting this recommendation today. MAST, my understanding is, are in the process of doing their 10-year strategic plan. I think it's an opportune time for council to put to MAST that that they consider the situation that councils are in respect to depreciation. My concern is once this infrastructure is properly assessed in the coming months, the depreciation will be based on replacement. So we might have a pretty basic, jetty there, and it's been there 20 years. The cost to replace that jetty or the boat ramp will be significant. And that's what we need to then factor in. So we may not have a real long time to factor that into our depreciation, as in, we've got to fund it in a short period, not the lifespan as it was from brand new. So we're coming in after the event. So I'm really concerned about what the cost is going to be on ratepayers in reality. And if MAST do not agree to take over the responsibility of depreciation or make a commitment, a formal commitment to replacing the asset as and when required, then the council have no option but to charge that depreciation back on its ratepayers. And when you look at the cost of replacing boat ramps, I mean, the one at Swansea alone was over $1 million. Was it closer to 1.5? You look at those sort of costs, and you look at what we depreciate now, which is around $2.5 million a year. In total. Yeah, in total. Our depreciation costs could certainly jump significantly, which will ultimately mean ratepayers' rates will jump. So I think we need to have a look at this and hear back from MAST on their position. But and also, of course, we'll be moving forward and getting the assessments done. Or the acting general manager will on the assets. And then we'll have a clear indication of the true cost for replacement. So in the meantime, I think it'd be good to put it on MAST's table and see what their position is, and also the position of the ministers, in the relevant ministers, which are both listed here. So I think it's an important conversation. I think everyone agrees that marine infrastructure is really important on the East Coast. But we also need to consider who's funding it and the implications on our ratepayers' rates going forward now that the full assessment's being done. Councillor Brini, do you wish to close debate?
Thank you, Mayor. I think, except in saying that Councillor Arnold did mention just focusing on the two obvious elephants in the room, but I think that avoids the compound responsibility that we're looking for MAST to give us some direction on. The undertaking as a whole needs to be addressed, and I think just focusing on the two very expensive ones might mean that we avoid covering the issue properly. MAST will respond, I presume, and I hope that their response is a positive one. Thank you.
I will just point out also that the MAST, I think there's around 400 lots of MAST infrastructure, marine infrastructure around the state, of which there is around a dozen that MAST do the complete depreciation for, like own. Most councils take it over, but there are some that don't. So, it's not as though it hasn't happened anywhere else. It has happened that MAST has taken on the responsibility. Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. That was the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Churchill, Wisby, Breeny, Browning and Robinson. Against? Councillor Arnold. The motion's carried 6-1. Where am I going to? Next page. Oh, there's no confidential items, and I will now declare the special meeting closed at 3:22 p.m. And we're just going to turn off the recording. So if you just